I was a heavy drug user at Dartmouth College, but I was also a very successful student in upper level courses. And in the summer after my freshman year, I came up with what I thought was the best joke in my life, which was, "Hi, I'm God," because how could God be 5'8"? So, I was walking around campus telling everybody my joke. And after 3 days, the campus cops came to me and said, "Are you Dale?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Would you come with us?" As I was lighting a bowl of hash. And I said, "Sure." So I put the hash in my pocket and went out to their station wagon. I thought they were going to take me to meet the president of the university, but
Yeah, yeah.
instead, they took me to the infirmary where for the next 4 hours I was interrogated by three sets of Ivy League psychiatrists and then put in a room, given a shot.
Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's not good enough? Like perfect is the only standard, but you're still left feeling behind? Perfectionism keeps us stuck. It robs us of peace, of our joy, and the freedom to just be. That's why I created Beauty of Imperfection, Good is Enough, a guided workbook to help you let go of the pressure, quiet your inner critic, and start celebrating progress over perfection. Inside, you'll find tools that remind you your worth has never depended on being perfect. It's time to embrace the beauty of imperfection because good really is enough. Let me remind you, you were always worthy. You already are. Get your copy of my workbook today. Emotionally unavailable.
Okay. Well, welcome, Dale. I'm so nice to meet you. This is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. You are an individual who was diagnosed with schizophrenia how many years ago?
50, a whole half
50.
century.
That is a long time. Okay. Well, I have a brother who was diagnosed when I was 18, so that was 1998. How long ago was that?
That was
27 years ago?
27 years. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
and he was 19. Like he was just a baby. How old were you 50 years
I was
ago?
there. Well, when my first hospitalization, I just turned 20.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. His was he had actually been up for like 4 days doing amphetamines, and it just kind of was like a switch that flipped, and he all of a sudden felt very called to religious topics and felt as if he needed to go to a church to preach a sermon. That's how his started. Did you have
Right.
spiritual stuff involved in yours?
Very much so. Well, I have two introductory poems, and I was going to do the second one, but talking about spirituality and everything, this
You
one
think
is
the other
more
one will work
relevant.
better?
So,
Okay. I'd love to
this one
hear
is
it. Let me
called
hear it.
this one is called Dale reviewing what actually happened.
God, I love this. Okay.
"Hi, I'm God" was the joke I made after Killer Dartmouth toke of some primo Ivy League smoke, which apparently caused me to croak because in mental hospital I awoke with Roomy Gabriel, the main bloke, who did my delusions angelically stroke even while doctor claimed my brain broke the moment divine gag I spoke, testifying I was only bit quack, which clinicians diagnosed a psychotic attack preventing me from getting sanity back until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track and deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient pack who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story incorrect. So, uh,
Uh,
long, long, long story short, Melissa, I was, I was, I was, a heavy drug user at Dartmouth College, but I was also a very successful student in upper level courses. And in the summer after my freshman year, I came up with what I thought was the best joke in my life, which was, "Hi, I'm God," because how could God be 5'8"? So, I was walking around campus telling everybody my joke. And After 3 days, the campus cops came to me and said, "Are you Dale?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Would you come with us?" As I was lighting a bowl of hash, and I said, "Sure." So I put the hash in my pocket and went out to their station wagon. I thought they were going to take me to meet the president of the university,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
instead, they took me to the infirmary where for the next 4 hours I was interrogated by three sets of Ivy League psychiatrists and then put in a room, given a shot. And 3 days later, I was in the best mental hospital in New York City, Payne Whitney Clinic, with a roommate named Gabriel who was very deferential towards my mother, Mary Alma, whose second husband's name was Joseph and who ultimately married the judge.
Oh, oh, Dale, you're killing me. This is so great because listen, my brother, that first year was very religious themed. After that, we went through mafia themes and
Right,
other
right,
other legal system themes. But that first year, I'll never forget because it was fucking traumatic for somebody who like this was my older brother and we had been through real shit together and like
right,
we were very protective of each other and he was like in some ways my best and closest friend, but like he wasn't there anymore. And so it was very traumatic, but also a little funny. And he went through a whole Gabriel thing and Archangel Michael.
right.
And I think because he had seen that movie the Devil's Advocate with,
Oh, okay.
you know what I'm talking about?
Al Pacino?
Al
Is that,
Pacino.
is that?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I think that probably helped influence some of the angelic, because I
Right,
mean, he didn't know anything about Gabriel or Archangel Michael. You know, like he didn't
right,
really know
right,
that. We were religious, but we weren't taught that stuff. So anyway, he went through a whole that at first it was he was one of them, like Michael or Gabriel, and then it was I'm God. And then there was a switch again. And then I had an
right,
aunt who was super traumatized. She's like, "Oh my God, your dad would be rolling over in his grave." And I'm like, "Surely dad would understand schizophrenia.
right,
Surely,
right.
surely." Let me ask you this because she was a person who just didn't really believe she's still alive. I don't know what she believes now because I don't talk to her, but she really didn't believe necessarily in the diagnosis. Did you have any family members that were like, "Oh, you're just," I don't know what they thought, but
No, they, the, from the very beginning, like I say, the campus cops came. I was put in a room, given a shot. I went down to my parents' apartment in New York City. The next day, we went to a very nice, ornate office in a very fancy building on the grounds of New York Hospital. The doctor had a very nice conversation. I'm not telling anybody that I think I'm God at this point. I mean, I never told my parents that I might have told them once that I thought I was God, like way down the line. But
yeah.
basically, we just had like a very nice conversation and doctor his name was Cohane, so I called him Cocaine Cohane. And
I
so
love it. I love Were you
anyways,
only smoking weed? Was that the only thing
no,
you were
this was
doing?
like
Okay.
multiple drugs. But
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. That makes
but
me
but
feel better.
basically it was a what high quality Ivy League weed every day. Every day a new batch would come in and it would be better than the batch before. And then there was also like high quality LSD, mescaline,
Yeah, he had
um,
done a lot of LSD
mushrooms.
too. Mhm.
Basically, this is 1975. So basically,
Oh,
we
yeah, you had access to all of it.
and also basically and I never got into cocaine at all. But
You didn't? Okay.
I think cocaine is the devil's drug, but we won't go into that.
I agree.
Uh, but anyway, so anything that was available in 1975 besides heroin, basically I did. So,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
and then my mother had the biogenetic predisposition towards mental illness. She was diagnosed with something that no one would ever tell us what it was for like 50 years. So, you know,
Really?
so she like had serious like mental health issues, and but
Okay.
she's also, she was also extremely functional and very high powered. My last
Yeah.
time I visited my best friend, he called my mother a force of nature. Just like, and so, but what I was going to say is that so I was at Dartmouth. I was in the hospital for 13 weeks, and in answer to your question about well, I'm sure you know what agnosognosia is, right? Oh, this is very essential that you know, Melissa, about schizophrenia, because it's a something called agnosognosia, and it's covered in a book called "I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help" by this doctor named Dr. Xavier Amador,
Okay.
Amagor. And basically, agnosognosia is a term taken from, I'm surprised you don't know it, but it's a term taken from neurology for stroke victims who can't understand their brain isn't working right. So
Oh,
basically, so it's been translated to psychiatry, and it's
mhm.
estimated that 60 to 80% of people with severe mental illness have agnosognosia. And
Yeah.
just to give like an analogy of what agnosognosia is, if you hold a book up to a blind person and ask him to read it, he's not going to be able to read it. So it's the same thing with mental illness and people with agnosognosia. If you say you're psychotic, you need to go to the hospital, not only are they not going to not believe you, but they aren't even going to be able to understand what you're
Yeah,
talking
what does
about.
that mean? Why are you saying yeah, okay, that makes sense. I
So
mean,
so,
that's yeah,
you
that's
know
definitely different than how family members can see. I mean, even though I understand y he's very in because my brother is still to this day unmedicated. We have had periods of medication, but he is chronically unhoused and unmedicated and but kinda not well, you know?
Right,
But from our perspective, it was just like, "Oh, these delusions that you live inside of feel very real to you, and we can't make you understand that they're not real." But he's not even understanding the conversation, I guess.
right. Well, one thing I should say is that he's been dealing with this for 27 years. You should really just thank God every day that he's still alive, because most
Yeah.
people in his situation would be dead.
I don't know how he's still alive either is the thing. Like he smokes so much, very common in schizophrenia. But like now I don't know how long he's been doing this because he had a 3-year stint in prison because of it was a computer fraud charge, but I know that he doesn't know how to use the computer. He said he
Right,
picked up a credit card and used it, so I don't know. But, like, he, like, literally, I've seen him eat food out of trash cans. So,
right,
he switched from regular cigarettes to, like, little cigars, but he
right,
smokes them all day long. I don't know how he's alive. He's a year older than me, so he's 46. But, like, he still remembers my birthday. He called me on my birthday and said, "Happy birthday," and he came back into my life after he did, the prison stint. He was around for about a year, but as the medications from prison slowly wore off, his agitation increased, and he just didn't wanna be
right,
around anymore. And then he was gone for, like, 3 years, and then he's been back for about 6 months, and I've been having regular contact with him again. And, his moods vary, but he can I have also gotten much more compassionate because I'm
right,
no longer protecting myself from the pain of it, and I just allow kind of the experience to unfold the way it does, but it's
right.
much easier to be around him now because I'm not in a protective mode. But anyway,
You're in an observer mode, which is where you should be in the first place.
yeah, you are so right. That is a beautiful way to put that. And it has taken me far too long to get there. But I mean, I had my own stuff I
Well,
had to deal with first.
I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but actually I have a program called Live Love, which is for the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia. and it basically was downloaded to me by God or genius or some higher
Yeah,
power. I
yeah.
can't, but basically, Live Love is a 8-step program. Each letter is a concept that we go into on an hour Zoom, but
Mhm.
goes learn, integrate, validate, explore, then listen, open, value, and express. And basically, I take people who are dealing with a loved one who's schizophrenic, and the goal is not only to improve their communication with their loved ones, but also to break the chains of codependency so many of these people are under due to the stress of like taking care of their loved ones. And so therefore, the goal is I call the family members of those with severe mental illness, the forgotten victims of mental illness, because
Yeah.
not only do the patient, whatever you want to call it. I just use patients for
Yeah,
ease.
yeah.
But the patients all at least have a doctor or a care worker or so, but so many of these families, I mean, there's no way to prepare for something like a loved one getting there with schizophrenia. And
Mhm.
secondly, what is it? And thirdly, where do we go from here? And 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 then with HIPAA and the ability to like keep everything a secret and everything, it's it's just like totally overwhelming. And then to tell you the truth, I'm just finishing my first full program tomorrow. But that's really what I feel my that's really what I feel the reason I got sick in the first place was for Live Love, so that so I could help family members get through the challenges of their loved
Absolutely.
one's schizophrenia.
Well, I mean, Del, you're living proof of what can happen with a patient. So that is very like it can bring peace, first of all. The fact that I get to even have this conversation, like I'm honored to have you because I really struggle with the boundaries, like I have boundaries now because I know that I have to, but the guilt that can eat you alive when you are in a much better, more fortunate situation than someone you love so much, but I can't save him. And so I'm now trying to show up as the only like version of me that I can be with him, which is like I'm your sister and I love you and I will help when I can, but I cannot be like we don't have other family to help him. We have another brother, but he's not in a position to help.
Right,
Everybody else is dead. So like I'm not a savior or a hero, and I'm not going to pretend to be, but it hurts me to watch him with such a limited support system. But he's had this for 27 years. He's he's figured some things out, he's created a
right,
system that obviously works for him, but it's nice and comforting to get to talk with you because well, I don't know, this rational part of you understands why a family wouldn't just throw themselves into the caretaking. And we did at first.
right,
Those
right,
first 10 years were trying to get him to appointments, all of that kind of stuff. But now, like with it just being me, I just know like what I can and can't do.
right.
I'm so happy you're doing this program. It sounds amazing.
Well, one thing that that I was listening to your podcast before, in preparation for coming on and everything, and one of the thoughts that came to my head is that, I think you were talking to a therapist and everything, and therapists are essential, and coaches and mentors or whatever I consider myself to be, they're all essential and everything, but basically, I think the one of the major one of the major crises of the whole mental health system is that this this unequal playing field where the therapist is in a superior position, where the patient is kept in a position of victimhood. And
Mhm.
and the therapist's livelihood depends on keeping their patients in need of them. And I'm not saying this is true for all therapists, but I'm
No,
just
but it's a part of that unwell system. Honestly, any medical
but
system. Agree.
the real point is that it's up to the individual, the patient, the person with the illness, to break out of their own sense of victimhood. And that took
Mhm.
me like basically 47 years. I had basically decided about a year ago I'm no longer going to be a victim of my diagnosis. But that took
Absolutely.
49 years. But
Yeah.
but ultimately that's why the system is so dysfunctional, is because uh, the patient isn't encouraged to like go outside himself, to from within, to be able to overcome what's inside, and the external is reflected in that, and they're like all judgmental and everything, and it just like
Right.
reinforces the victimhood. And it's a perpetual cycle. And I don't know how to break it, but I know that I think it is important, and that's why I speak to both family members and to patients when I try to talk to people, is because you know first the family has to stop seeing themselves as victims, and then
Mhm.
and then the patient has to stop seeing him or herself as a victim, and then they have to work together. And rather than being light surrounded by darkness, it's like sort of like dawn, where the light is coming into the darkness.
Oh, I love that. And you're so right. I think the tricky part is that I didn't see my own victimization either until around the time you found yours. Like, I realized, oh, I have created a real victimhood in myself here, not just because of him, all the childhood trauma, all the anything. I didn't see myself consciously as that because I was strong. I was the survivor. I was resilient. I don't see myself as a victim. But what I didn't realize was everything was just happening to me. Not for me, but to
Correct.
me, and I didn't ever see a way out. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are, like, with him not being medicated, is he does he have the capacity for rational thought ever?
Well, eh, I can only answer from my own experience. All I know is that when I've been on the same medication for 45 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
every time I stop my medication, except for one time when I was on a trip to Europe, and I was having a good time and I didn't take my medication, and that was fine. But when I got back to Hackensack, whenever I stopped taking my medication, within 2 days to 2 weeks, I'd be back in the hospital.
Mhm.
So that to me, that that meant docs, without medication, docs saw me as psychotic. And so, basically I learned the lesson: you gotta take your medication. So I can't really answer that, to tell you the truth, because I've never like I meant but on the other hand, my good friend Andy, he got lost in New York City. I'd met him in the hospital, and we were good friends for like 15, 20 years. Then he got lost in New York City one day, and he went 10 days without his medication, and basically vanished into New York City, and his mother was like going nuts and everything. But finally he called her and picked him up and everything. But he's never been the same. I mean, he has never been able to get back to the level of functionality that he had before that
Mm.
10-day break in his meds. So I admire your brother for being able to survive I don't know if he's on the streets or, well,
Right now,
where
he's
he is.
because he has met somebody who, like, he made a friend who, if I'm just being really honest, seems to have his own set of challenges mentally. Um, but he's very kind to my brother, and he's just
Right.
letting him live there. And I helped him to get back on his Social Security disability and get a license, or
Good.
not a license, but an ID and his birth certificate and stuff like that. So he's been for like 2 months. He's been really stable, and that's been nice. But um, it's funny because he had a thing back when he was on Social Security regularly. I mean, this was how long ago was 9/11? During that, 9/11 was the first time he had gone to New York City. We live in Oklahoma, just for reference.
Okay.
We live in Oklahoma, and this MF decided, because he was in the mafia era
Right.
of his disease, he decided he has an obsession with John Gotti. I don't know if he thought, that he would be closer to his spirit. I don't know.
Right. Right.
So he goes to New York City. We don't know that. We show up to his apartment, it's empty. We know that. And then on September 12th, we get a call from Bellevue Hospital, a psychiatrist, and they said, "Hey, he wandered in here on the 10th and was asking for cigarettes in the lobby of the hospital, and it was obvious that something was not right, and so we admitted him." And like I to this day believe that's the only reason he wasn't like in Times Square or, any of those
Right.
places
Right.
whenever the fucking 9/11 happened. It was so nuts. It was so nuts. And so
Right.
um he's gone back lots of times and just lives on like the subway for a while, and then always makes his way back. There's like arrest records all across the country over petty theft, where he's just
Right.
trying to
Right.
survive a little bit. I don't know where he got this survival skills from, except for the shitty childhood, honestly, but like it is impressive because he very much has like the skills, but the smoking is what gets him in so much trouble. Like he
Well,
can't stay in shelters and stuff because of it.
not only is it extremely expensive, especially in New York, it's like $20 a pack in New York City
Uh-huh.
apparently.
Uh-huh.
So,
It's
but
crazy how expensive.
let me tell you a story about smoking. So, I gave up smoking on August 1st, 2000, after 35 years of a pack a day of Marlboros. So, anyway, long story short, I see the actually I see the pulmonologist today, but I see pulmonologist once a year. And about 2 years ago, I'm just like talking casually with her, and I say, "Yeah, I gave up cigarettes," and she goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I gave up cigarettes." She goes, "I've never heard of a person with your diagnosis giving up cigarettes."
Yeah. It's
So
pretty uncommon. Well, do you
that
know what's really sad is, he had this period where he was doing really, really well. This was a long time ago, but he was doing really well, and he was living down the street from his kids enough to where he could get off. He would meet them at the bus stop when they would get off and get to spend some time with them after school and stuff. And he was really trying to get everything together, and he started using nicotine patches because he wanted to quit smoking. First of all, he was smoking far beyond what that nicotine patch could provide. He was like a three
right,
pack a day smoker, and the nicotine patch just interfered with whatever medication or something, and that was it. Like, he had been doing so well for like 6 months, like to where we all had hope, of course, that things
right,
would be good, but then he missed medication and some other stuff. The nicotine patch was making him hallucinate, and then he stopped medication, and then that was it. He's never really had an attempt to get better since then. There have been hospitalizations that were forced on him, and we had brief periods of,
right,
okayness, but he's never really been
right.
okay since then.
Yeah, it's I just consider myself so fortunate, not only for the help that I got. I mean, I just mentioned this in passing, but I was in a psychiatric residence for 5.5 years, having
Oh,
therapy 3 times a week, individual therapy three
wow.
times a week, and group therapy twice a week. And we all ate
Wow.
together. It was like all for adolescents and young adults. And excuse me, I'm going to just turn.
That is impressive that you had that level of care available to you.
Well, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was just like this doctor who set up this program out of nowhere, and he ran the whole thing. His wife like cooked
Wow.
meals for like 15 people a day, and there were 3 houses. And but anyway, so not only did was I like immediately hospitalized after Dartmouth, and so that like took care of the explosion of the primary psychosis, but it also that led to 5.5 years in the program. And then I went
Yeah.
back to college, and it took me basically a year to two of being in college. I was always a very good student, so people were impressed by my intelligence, but it took me 2 years to like learn how to reintegrate with normal people,
I
because
bet.
I had been in the program for 5.5 years with people with issues. So
Yeah.
but and then I graduated magna cum laude in English, and then I became the spirit of the campus for 10 years because I was on disability and I had nothing to do. So I
Yeah.
just I started a I actually started a tutoring business. And
That's so cool.
the truth be told now. I used to say I help people write papers. I wrote the papers. I wrote 300 papers in 10 semesters, Melissa.
I fucking love it. Did you get paid for it or you just did
Of
it
course,
'cause? Yeah,
that was
yeah.
my income.
I
I
fucking love
you
it.
know, so can't, from my apartment, I would like cross campus to the coffee shop. I'd enter campus with no money in my pocket. And by the time I got to the coffee shop on the other side of campus, I would have 25 to $50 in my pocket. Just students coming up and saying, "Hey, Dewey, I need
Oh
a
my
favor." I would
god.
say a favor or a job, and they'd say job. Oh, okay. What is it? Okay, I need 5 pages on the Iliad by Monday. Okay, and then I would like I'd say you pay me half when you contract and half when you get the paper. And it was a very good business, and
Oh my god, I
it,
love this. That is so
and it endeared
great.
me to student body. I said I was student body's best friend for 10 years. I was the spirit of the campus to the point where during Greek week one time, they have a scavenger hunt, right? Like you have to go all over campus and find all sorts of things and everything. So, the fraternities had a Greek week scavenger hunt, and one of the things that was required in the scavenger hunt was my signature.
Oh, that is fucking great. You were a staple on campus.
I
Yes, you
was.
were. Oh my god, how wonderful for you. Because then you really haven't experienced the level of isolation that a lot of people with schizophrenia deal with.
I've been well after in the last like 10, 15 years, the isolation has been closing in. You know but on the other hand, in the last 15 years, I've learned to love myself a lot more. So it
Yeah, I was about to
all
I mean, you
balanced.
seem like it. You seem very accepting of who you are, and I love that. Do you feel like the isolation was a little bit self-imposed in a positive way too? Like the more you've grown, the harder it's been to be around certain people?
uh no, I think other people find it harder to be around me.
Really? Do you really think that?
Just because my mind never stops expanding.
Yes.
So
Yes.
therefore, I take people to frontiers that a lot of times they don't want to cross. And
And you know what? Me too. actually. So I totally get that because well, listen, there was a time about a year and a half ago because I had a spiritual awakening during some healing, and all day every day my reality was shifting because I was becoming this new person, but very quickly, to where I was like, shit, like, am I having a psychotic break? I was like questioning if I was in spiritual psychosis. Like,
Right,
like I went to my 16-year-old, who he was 16 at the time, and I was like, do you think I have schizophrenia? And he was like, no, I think this is a new belief system and you've had a lot of changes really fast. I think
right,
you're But I was scared because, I mean, my mother was also diagnosed as schizophrenic, but I don't actually think she had it. I think she had a lot of the same shit I had, which is just really loud narratives. Like, our self-talk
right.
basically was just real shitty and loud. But in all of my new beliefs, and some are not new, but the way I feel them feels new still. I'm very vocal about them. That's why I like having my own podcast, because then I can say whatever I want. But I definitely feel like nobody's that interested in talking to me about it all the time. So I can relate. I'm fairly isolated myself aside from this kind of stuff.
Well, um, and I wanted to mention that I just started my own podcast. It's called the Do Andrew Conspiracy, DEW Andrew. That's my co-host name, Do Andrew Conspiracy. And we just put our 11th episode up on YouTube. So,
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to check it out. That sounds amazing. Uh-oh. Think
but yeah, so I just yeah, not only do I feel fortunate that I've come out as well as I have, but I just I took a advocacy course, a severe mental health advocacy course with this place called the Advocacy Center. It was a 12-week boot camp, and the problems facing the mental health system are just so overwhelming. And I've been involved with it for 50 years, but I've sort of like had a parallel stream of I mean, I've never had to worry about finding a doctor or going to jail or, or having I had 15 hospitalizations, Melissa. So, there were a lot of times when I was
Yeah,
like
there was some rockiness, yeah.
I was staring down the barrel of like permanent hospitalization. And I say
Wow.
proudly, I was hospitalized 15 times and I got out 15 times, but
And that's not
ultimately,
for nothing, you know?
well, I think that that's one of the things that I must impress about myself, beyond my college graduation,
Which is
um
very impressive, by the way.
but anyway, so yeah, I just so schizophrenia, there is no guarantee. And I mean, God forbid, like my medication stops working, or and one thing I wanted to say just about your brother in general is one thing that I've learned is that the less stress you have in your life, the less severe your symptoms are going to be. And therefore,
Okay.
I've really cultivated and building a peaceful life. I don't pay attention to things that are distractions so far as I can, and
Yeah.
just find that inner wisdom, find that inner peace. And I feel that's probably what your brother is accessing too, that's kept him alive for 27 years. It's just like that inner human wisdom that that people talk about. And he's very fortunate, but also that 27 years surviving on the street with schizophrenia goes beyond fortunate. That's design, so and
Yeah, and I used to, like, cry and think, "Why? Why is he gonna outlive everyone when, like, it's such a sad existence for him?" But with my newfound beliefs, I'm like, okay, this is his soul's purpose, and I'm gonna do what I can to be a part of that. Like, I don't know what that's gonna look like from here on out, but as I just show up however I am as compassionately as I can. Like I've been doing Uber Eats to, make some extra money, and he'll
Right.
call and just talk my ear off for like, however long. And he doesn't understand half the shit that because he doesn't know technology. He doesn't, he
Right.
doesn't have a phone and stuff. He's borrowing that guy's phone. But, so he'll just ask the same questions over and over about what I'm doing because he doesn't understand the delivery
Right.
system. But I just calmly and patiently answer the same questions, and he's not all that calm if I say no to a request, but I just know that that's like he has a need that's not being met, and that's his resistance to my boundary, and I can understand that. But, thank you, because I really I do believe I have hope that he will one day be able to say, "This is why this happened to me too," and be able to help himself and others the way that you are.
And one other thing is, give your, give yourself compassion, Melissa. I meant when something like this happens, when schizophrenia hits someone that is essential to your family, you know, the natural reaction versus there are 5 stages of grief, they say, but
Mhm.
there are 5 stages of getting used to schizophrenia too. And the first is anger, and then grief, and then like disbelief. But then finally you reach that point of, can't all the time you have that compassion and concern, but you can't let that compassion and concern like overwhelm the person so that he stops growing, because
Right.
growth is essential to everything, and especially to recovery from mental illness. And
That's
as
so
soon
true.
as you like strangle somebody's growth through concern, I mean, this is what happened with my family. And it's just like it was a natural reaction, and they did what they thought was best. And
Sure.
and I still see it in my sister, but now after 70 years I'm finally breaking this like idea that she has to like look out for me, because and I say to myself, well, I've gotten down to the hospital 15 times. I mean, I've seen things that she she would never be able to comprehend or conceive of what's happening in my head. But
Right.
but I appreciate her concern, but I am my own person, and that's ultimately what families have to do. They have to let go of the holding on and the grasping to help, and just
Mhm.
let themselves be free to feel how to help as they watch the person grow.
Yeah. And I appreciate that advice because, it's easy to over identify and think, oh, well, he can't help it or whatever. But the thing is I still see parts of the, manipulative person that he was before he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. I still see parts of that just human being in there, and he is aware of those tactics, like, and
Right,
he's smart like you in the way that like he remembers things. Like his brain always worked very fast too, and um like if he knows about money, like if his money's coming in, he knows how much, he knows how much he's got left, he knows how much he's supposed to have. Like he can keep track of certain things, but
right,
it's just his general functioning is not all that great. But
right.
I am trying to have compassion for myself too. So I appreciate the affirmation of that because it can be hard, and I've had to come to a place where I say, just excuse me, just because he's my brother doesn't mean I owe him any more than I do any other human on this planet. And I just need to treat him with kindness, love, respect, and help when I can, and not overgive.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. And If I've been helpful, I hope so. Just but that's the thing. I mean, that's really the point of our podcast is sovereignty and self-awareness and the higher self.
I
And
love
just
that.
how, I mean, we just, this is like something that I've like really come to terms with or coming to terms with in the last 2 or 3 months since I basically broke out of my delusion, stopped thinking I was God, and now I'm back to Dale for the first time in 50 years. So
Yeah.
now I feel that I have to do in the next 10 years what Dale would have done in the last 50 years if he hadn't been so distracted by trying to be God. So, well,
Yeah.
but my point is, just just have passion on yourself, and everything comes from within. And this is what I'm going to say: ultimately no external judgment. Everything is an internal acceptance. And the more you realize that, the more you'll be at peace if you can just find the peace to forgive yourself for your mistakes.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Where can we find you other than your podcast?
Well, actually, I'm sort of like in a stalemate with my website. I got to get it. It got suspended. So, but uh, Instagram. Probably the easiest way is DM me on Instagram at
Okay.
Dale Dale.Walsh.14. And then I think also, well, there are also two other things. There's Calendly, which is www.calendly, CALENDLY.com/Dale Coach 55. And you can schedule a 45-minute talk with me, whether, about live love or, if you just want to talk
Yeah.
or and then the newest thing is I just set up a new Gmail account for inquiries into my books. I didn't mention that I have 5 books on Amazon
Oh,
under the name
nice.
D.E. Walsh, and I also have an archive of 5,000 poems and 6 novels. So, uh,
Wow.
but so that Gmail is DEW author AUTHOR 25 at gmail.com. And I guess I don't know how to contact me through my YouTube, but if you leave a message, I'm sure I'll see it.
Okay. Well, and I'll make sure to include as much of that in the show notes as I possibly can too.
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate you so much. I love the work you're doing. I love that you are doing such a good job too of just taking care of yourself and living out this human experience. Sounds like you found your purpose, and I love that. And I seriously, I appreciate this conversation way more than you're ever going to understand.
Well, I appreciate that, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Hey, I'm going to push stop, but hang out for 1 sec.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.